Today I'm going to look at the Shroud of Turin. I'm going to look at some of the history and some of the new modern day evidence surrounding the Shroud of Turin. And obviously, for those that don't know, the Shroud of Turin is a piece of cloth that appears to show the image of a crucified man. And many people believe that this is actually the image of Jesus Christ, and some people now believe that this isn't just evidence that Jesus Christ existed, but this is evidence that he also resurrected from the dead, because that's what this image potentially could be showing. But first we'll look at some of the history of the image. The image first shows up during France in the 13th century, and the widow of a French king, King Geoffroy de Charny, reveals it to the world after his death. Nobody is sure where this French king got the Shroud of Turin from, but some legends claim it could have been taken from the Middle East during the Crusades. So some people believe that it was actually taken during the Crusades by the Knights Templar and somehow ended up with the King of France at the time. But there is no historical evidence to support this claim. But there is apparently similar descriptions of a similar item to it in even earlier records, but most people do believe that the first definitive sighting of the Shroud of Turin as we see it today is this sighting from the 13th century. But there is also evidence that it could have been seen by many people around the world somehow before then, and I'll go into that as well later. But it ended up in Turin anyway in 1578, and it's remained in Turin ever since that. The only time it's ever been moved is during World War II for safekeeping. And obviously in the book of Matthew and then in the book of John, when Jesus is crucified and after his death, he is wrapped in a clean piece of linen cloth and placed in a tomb. So he's wrapped in a piece of cloth and placed in a tomb after his death, and this piece of cloth contained blood on it and bodily fluids, as well as what appears to be, like I say, a perfectly printed version of a man. But the trouble is there does not seem to be any evidence of paint or dyes or anything of the sort being used. Apparently, carbon dating from the 1980s, from 1988, debunked the Shroud of Turin as nothing more than a medieval hoax. But most people now dismiss the original research due to bad carbon dating and bad testing, unprofessional scientific testing. And the reason they say that it was unprofessional was because they only taken one piece from one corner of the cloth and tested that, and when they seen what they believed was fabrics used only during medieval times, they come to the conclusion that this cloth was a medieval hoax. But it's now been proved that if you examine different parts of the cloth, there is lots of different points of repair on the cloth that have been performed throughout different ages of the cloth. I mean, the cloth was actually fire damaged as well, so it's been repaired numerous times throughout history, and the corners have probably been repaired the most, which is actually where they're taking the sample from. They're taking the sample from the corners, which is probably the most repaired part, because that would be the most held part when it's being moved around. So most people dismiss the 1988 research and the claim that it was poorly the data was poorly extracted, and then it wasn't done on a professional level, according to most people that have looked into it. But the probable cause or creation of the cloth now is considered to be UV radiation. Is the most probable cause of it, because, as I say, there is no signs of dye, paints, or anything of the sort. So the most probable cause of the creation of the cloth now is considered to be UV radiation. But there is a problem with that, and that is the amount of radiation required to actually imprint that image onto a cloth is thought to be impossible to produce, and it's more of energy than the world currently creates, so at any one given time. So it's basically out of the question that this could have been some sort of hoax. And the way the image is created is almost like a photograph, but it's even more detailed than a photograph. In fact, when it was analysed by VP8, which is used to analyse data that is sent back from Mars by NASA, it actually managed to produce like a 3D map of it, and it's never actually managed to do this with any other photograph before, but somehow it managed to create a 3D map of the Shroud of Turin, despite never being able to do it off any other photograph that's ever existed. So that's amazing on its own. And also, when it's looked at closely, people have examined it to believe that it's actually showing a moving body, that it's actually 3 frames of a moving body, of a body that is actually being uplifted, and we'll go into a bit more of that in a bit. But the very first photograph that was ever taken of it was taken in 1898, and when the negative of the photograph was looked at, the man who taken the photograph realised that the negative actually created a much more detailed positive image, and the only way this could possibly happen is if the original photo, the original picture of the shroud on the cloth is actually a negative image, which again makes it impossible that it could have been a medieval hoax, because there was no knowledge of photography back in medieval times. But there is an explanation to how the light must have come out by scientists, and they believe that the only way this light could have come out is in a straight line and directly from the body. So the light that created this image, if it was UV light, must have come out in a direct straight line from the body. But the only trouble is that would require more energy than the whole world creates. So you'd think that would have some sort of impact on the world, and there was nothing nothing reported like that at the time. But an interesting thing is that I've noticed is that DNA actually emits light. So some people theorise that potentially that the light that was emitted from the body was actually the body of Jesus Christ actually resurrecting, and it was being risen. It was being risen at the time of the light, and that's why it's a moving image as well. That would also explain why it's a moving image. But the story of the Shroud of Turin just seems to create more and more questions, and it seems to become more and more unrealistic to believe this thing is a medieval hoax. And there's also been pollen that has been found within the cloth that apparently can only be found in Jerusalem. Obviously, skeptics are going to say that the evidence for the pollen is pretty questionable because of potential contamination or accidental contamination or even deliberate contamination. So the evidence of the pollen is considered to be not the strongest, but it's still there. But the fact that there's been no dyes, no paints, no oils, and the fact that it's the only image that has ever created, that VP8 has ever created a 3D map of successfully, are both very interesting facts that should be considered before dismissing it as a medieval hoax. A filmmaker called David Rolfe has actually offered the British Museum $1 million to replicate it, and so far the image hasn't been replicated ever. And that's another thing about the Shroud of Turin. Apparently there's never been another thing seen like it anywhere in the world. It's like the only thing of its type. It's not a common thing to happen, to get a perfectly printed version of a person on a piece of cloth. I mean, it's like never happens, and yet there it is, and it survived for at least 2,000 years, nearly 2,000 years, and it's in absolutely remarkably good condition, considering its age, considering it is thought to be 2,000 years old. So there's even been tests that have shown limestone from Jerusalem that was apparently on the man's feet, and this limestone is also on the cloth, and this limestone's native to Jerusalem. It can only be found in Jerusalem. And obviously for those, that don't know, and for those that haven't seen it, the cloth is showing clearly a man that is being crucified, and heavily tortured. In fact, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the torturing of Jesus in the movie The Passion of Christ is based on the torturing of the man in the Shroud of Turin. So this thing appears to be the real deal. Obviously skeptics would always try to explain the way out of it somehow, but at the moment it doesn't seem to be an easy thing to explain the way out of. The creation of the Shroud of Turin is a complete mystery. Nothing has ever been seen like it before, and I know I've never seen anything like it, and like I say, it's the only photo that is, it's the only image that VP8 has managed to make a 3D image out of. It's never managed to do that with any photograph or any other image like it, but somehow it's managed to do it. It even shows levels of details that are just beyond. Like I say, it's got blood dripping from where he was wearing the crown. He's got nails going through his wrist. He's got the stab wound where the Roman soldier stabbed him in the chest to see if he was still alive. He's got literally every single injury described, even the broken nose. And when it was looked at by somebody from a dental association, they said they'd seen the image as almost an X-ray. Like, you could actually, when you looked at the negative image of it, you could actually see the teeth of the man in the image. You could actually see through it as well. There was layers to the image, and it was, like I say, a moving image. It was 3 frames of a moving image of a man being lifted up. And I think now that some people, including me, are going to start to, we have to believe that this is actual evidence, not just evidence, but actual proof of not only the existence of Jesus Christ, but also his resurrection. everything about it seems like it could be potentially supernatural, even its preservation, even the fact that it's still around today, 2,000 years later, being examined by scientists and still not being debunked. And it's really unlikely that it's some sort of medieval hoax anyway, so I suppose people that don't believe ain't going to start to believe based on watching a 15-minute video made by me. But I do recommend that you look deeper into the Shroud of Turin. There is a lot of interesting videos about it on YouTube and about the misconceptions of the original tests done on it and how it was all pretty much set up to prove it was wrong anyway, to what it is now. Like, I mean, where scientists are looking at it and still in 2024 not being able to explain how the image was created, how it could have been hoaxed. I mean, obviously if it was hoaxed in the medieval times, you'd think that scientists around today would be able to work it out with no signs of chemicals or paint or oils or anything of the sort. It seems to be a negative image that creates a positive image on the negative of a photograph. I mean, it really is quite amazing. I recommend that you look more into it. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'm out.